Week 3 of fantasy football is almost in the books, and there was some absolute carnage that took place, and it's resulted in 10 players skyrocketing up our rest of season rankings. Danny, you want to get it kicked off with the first guy that is going up our rankings for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and I'm going to be completely honest right here. Corey, I think we have this year's version of 2024 Saquon Barkley, and I want to be aggressive in my ranking of him before the market catches up to just how dominant he can be. And I understand right now he's the RB1 in fantasy. People kind of know, hey, he's producing 25 points per game. He's been very good. But Jonathan Taylor is my running back 3 rest of the season. I moved him above Saquon Barkley, above Christian McCaffrey. The only 2 running backs I currently have ahead of Jonathan Taylor rest of the season are Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Not only is JT getting more work than past years, he is getting a generational workload. And I mean, sometimes you just have this marriage of a bunch of factors, man. You have an elite runner. They find the grace of a perfect situation, ample volume, and scoring opportunity. And that is exactly what Jonathan Taylor is representing. 74% of the Colts routes, 3 targets per game. And get this, Corey, he's averaging over 30 receiving yards per game right now. This guy, he's pacing over 500 receiving yards this year. The next highest in his career was 360, the year he was the running back 1 overall. The scariest part, too, you look at the workload, you see, well, 67% of the rush share. 67% of the rush share, when you add context, actually looks much better because the 16 non-Jonathan Taylor carries in this offense came in garbage time. Not only is JT handling literally every single opportunity out of this Colts backfield, but the team actually looks good. The offense is driving the ball. Daniel Jones, you'll talk about in a second. He looks good, man. So at the end of the day, the nuts and bolts of the situation here. JT looks like an elite player. He is getting an elite work. This is a good offense. What is stopping him from being the RB1 overall in fantasy this year?
No, there's not much stopping him. And for as big as I was on Daniel Jones and the offense in general, I actually am underweight Jonathan Taylor in best ball, which kind of sucks knowing that I was drafting a crap ton of Daniel Jones and the rest of the offense. But yeah, I mean, regardless, you got to tip your cap. It's a great situation. The quarterback's playing super, super well. It's resulting in the scoring opportunities. And like you said, he's actually basically pacing career highs as a receiver, which is not something we've ever been able to count on with Jonathan Taylor. Typically, he's usually more so just a guy that you think of as an early down guy. And yeah, like you said, in the first and third game of the season, he had his snap share kind of look a little bit fugazi because the Colts were beating the daylights out of the Dolphins. And then this past week as well. So you feel so good about this guy, literally, as long as the game's close, being on the field pretty much every single snap.
5.63 yards per carry this year, 4 touchdowns in the first 3 games. And we're talking about 69 opportunities in the 3 games. Even despite having his Sherry care cut into in garbage time, 23 opportunities per game. If Jonathan Taylor is going to play at this level, dude, the fact that you were able to get him as your second selected player, this guy's going to win leagues. I think he is at very worst a top 6 or 7 asset for the rest of the season when you combine him, running back, and wide receiver.
Well, yeah, especially when you factor in that like Chase is, doesn't have Burrow anymore and Lamb is banged up now. Jefferson's not really performing up to the same level. Yeah, like if we redrafted today, you could argue that he's a top 6 pick or a top 5 pick even potentially. So yeah, Jonathan Taylor got to be a huge, huge riser. Running back 1 overall in fantasy. It's too late probably to buy low on the guy. Like you said, everybody's going to look at how he's produced so far. But if you have him, you feel very, very good about your chances of winning.
Don't sell high.
Especially if you paired him with a Puka Nacua or you paired him with a Bijan Robinson. Like there's teams out there that have Bijan and Jonathan Taylor.
And I'm going to, 100% on Underdog as well. That was about where the ADP range was, which is ridiculous thinking back. But I will say it right now. There will be people that selected him at the end of the second. Maybe if you were lucky like me in our listener league, I got him at the 305 in our league. I'll tell you right now, if you're thinking about selling high, do not. This is what I expect the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Speaking of Jonathan Taylor, our comp for Omarion Hampton coming out of school was Jonathan Taylor. And 2 major factors. First of all, he didn't look like complete dog shit against the Denver Broncos in this past week's game. Weird that I just realized this. The Chargers started with 3 straight divisional opponents at the beginning of the season. And I said in the running back tier list video, when it clicks for Hampton, he's going to be a huge riser. And I'm not saying it clicked. I mean, he only averaged like 3.7 yards per carry in this game, but he posted 25 PPR points. On top of that, Najee Harris has now torn his Achilles and is out for the rest of the year. That has to immediately vault Omarion Hampton from like the RB18, RB19, where he fell after those first 2 weeks, all the way back up to where we had him before, which is like the RB10, RB11, RB12. I have him at RB11 right now, and another good game, and he's going to be right up there, probably in the tier with like the Bucky Irvings and the James Cooks and the Devon Achans of the world, because when you have 7 targets, 130 total yards, you score your first career touchdown. Hampton kind of arrived just in time for the Giants, Commanders, and Dolphins, probably a Commanders team potentially without Jaden Daniels as well for his next 3 games. And yeah, he had, a bad start to the season, but he was a rookie running back. The Chiefs and Raiders are 2 of the top run defenses in the league that he played the first 2 weeks. So man, 79% of the snaps this week, 70% of the carries, like I said, 60% of the routes, and 7 targets, 6 receptions for 130 total yards. If he's going to continue this usage, we are talking about a rest of season mid RB1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Omarion Hampton, you guys know what we thought about the talent coming in. I said all offseason, once we hit August, I'm like, dude, like this guy's got to be a 2-3 turn pick. And I will say through the first 2 weeks, it didn't look great, but it did click, like you said. And now, obviously, the elephant in the room here, I hope Najee has a full recovery from a life perspective, but he's going to miss the rest of the season. Najee Harris, what's assumed to be a torn Achilles at this point. I don't think it was.
I think it's been pretty much confirmed,
basically
more or
confirmed.
less.
Just very unfortunate for Najee. Again, I hope he makes a full recovery. It's obviously awful news, similar to what happened with Austin Eckler, but you just got to point to the fact that Omarion Hampton is going to be a 80+% snap share type of running back in what's considered a top 5 to 8 offense.
Yeah, no, and again, if he's starting to play well now in week 3, what is he going to be playing like in week 14? You know what I mean? Like that's what we have to think about with Omarion Hampton, because this guy can handle a big workload. And as we finally saw this week, because we weren't really seeing in the first 2 games, he is capable of 5+ target per game performances. He was a heavily involved receiver back at North Carolina. So yeah, you got to feel really, really good about Omarion Hampton. I'm looking up and down this list, Danny, and I swear to God, we're not trying to victory lap a lot of these players. When we weren't in on a player, we'll make sure that we say that. But so far, I will say that some of these takes that we had before the season are starting to materialize pretty well. One that's materialized quite well for you is Caleb Williams, who's your number 2.
So I talked about his teammate Rome Odunze last week, and I said, Corey, if he goes out, second highest game total of the week against the Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to be ranking Rome Odunze aggressively. Corey, you saw on the site, where do I have Rome Odunze ranked now?
You have him wide receiver 7, and I have him at 11, and that's probably about in line with where the market's going to have him, is about like a back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. But yeah, wide receiver 7. And Caleb Williams himself is also the QB 2 or something in fantasy points per game right now, because he has just absolutely eviscerated the Cowboys defense this past week. And even without really doing a whole lot on the ground, because we've seen some games he's run a lot and some games he really hasn't run a lot. But the passing Ben Johnson rushing combination is yielding some great fantasy results.
And man, when you just look at the context of how this offense is structured, and this is why I was so giddy on this offense coming into the year, they have all the weapons you could possibly ask for in the passing game and the single worst rush game in the league. If you guys have watched DeAndre Swift carry the football this year, I'll tell you, 3 yards per carry against the Cowboys. He had so many more he left on the field. But I'll talk about the passing game. Obviously, I got to watch this game in depth. What really stood out to me in particular was just the comfort of Caleb Williams in the context of Ben Johnson's offense and just how good this weapons core looks. Caleb, he looks in rhythm, he's reading his keys, and he was making the right decision on basically every single drop back. Like, sure, people will point out the Cowboys secondary, it's not one of the better secondaries in the league right now, especially with Trayvon Diggs playing hurt, Deron Bland, of course, missing this game. But at the same time, it hasn't just been this game for Caleb Williams. With Caleb Williams, you get a 60+% completion percentage in each of his first 3 games. And get this, meme of the channel, Corey, Caleb so far in the first 3 games, he's only eaten 6 sacks. Last year, he ate 68 sacks in 17 games. A lot of sacks are being eaten. He's not eating as many this year. He's really improving on that part of his game. And I mean, Rome Odunze, we talked about it, stud. Luther Burden has his big breakout this week against the Cowboys. I mean, even Colson Loveland, we were talking about before we started recording. Colson Loveland in the first quarter, 3 targets, 31-yard catch. Yeah, he has a hip injury right now, but when he comes back, you feel great about this weapons core for Caleb Williams. He's up to the quarterback 6 for me rest of the season. I haven't even talked about the fact that he's averaging over 30 rushing yards per game, and he has only 50 less rushing yards on the season than DeAndre Swift does.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. DeAndre Swift is such a bad running back. Like I really think that the Bears are going to be in the market for one at the deadline, whether it's, Kamara or somebody else that's available on the trade market. But yeah, dude, I'll give you this is exactly where I wanted to be on Caleb Williams. I was slightly above market. That's exactly 9.3%. In best ball is exactly where I wanted to be, because I knew the Ben Johnson, gets the best out of him scenario existed, but I didn't want to be 20% all in or 15% all in on the guy, because I was worried about, the Caleb Williams we saw in his rookie season. It looks like that guy is probably a thing of the past.
Yeah. And I mean, quarterback 6 right now, we got another week of him looking like this, another week of comfortability in the Ben Johnson offense. We could be talking about a legit tier 1 quarterback. Like, he's the one guy outside of the tier 1, the clear top 4, in my opinion, that can rise there, because he's running the football, and you cannot scoff at 24 points per game so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Moving into my number 2, a guy who is literally my highest rostered running back on Underdog, Quinshon Judkins, going from my RB 26 to 21. Now, I would say putting him at 21 is still somewhat conservative.
I'm at 20.
There's people like, I know some people on the site have him like top 18, top 19 or whatever. The fact that Judkins hasn't been suspended means that he probably won't for the rest of the season, in my opinion. The criminal charges disappeared. The NFL probably did some kind of investigation. I would guess that maybe if he gets suspended, it'll be next year when more facts come out and that kind of thing. On the football field, Judkins is running like a bat out of hell against what people consider to be the best defense in the league coming into the week. And the Browns beat the Packers in this game. Leads all rookies in rushing, Quinshon Judkins, despite not playing in week 1 and having 10 carries and playing on a pitch count in week 2, and really only getting a full workload starting in week 3. He leads all rookies in rushing yards. So Quinshon Judkins, man, this is the dude I watched. This is the dude that I ranked ahead of Omarion Hampton as a talent coming into the season and into the draft process, because even though the Browns aren't a good offense and all that kind of stuff, their defense is going to keep them in games, and it's going to keep the game scripts pretty favorable for them to lean on what is their new offensive identity, which is the young running back they took in the top 40 in the draft.
Who would have thought Mason Graham just completely pairing with Myles Garrett would make the Browns one of the best defenses in the league? I mean, all jokes aside, though, the fact that the Browns are keeping competitive and can actually run this guy between the tackles, and he's actually got the ability to be efficient on those carries, man, we got to be excited, because we know the Stefanski scheme. When the Browns are in competitive game scripts, we trust Stefanski's ability to get that scheme up front. Obviously, Quinshon Judkins, the ability to get downhill. If we can expect 16 plus carries per game and an efficient, even 4.3, 4.4 plus yards per carry clip, we're talking about a Browns team that I would say looks better than the expectations we had coming into the season.
Well, yeah. And dude, think of the teams they've stayed competitive with. A full strength Bengals team in week 1. Yeah. In week 2, it was the Ravens. For the first 3 quarters of the game, they stayed competitive. And then they beat the Packers in week 3. They play the Lions in week 4. So there's another absolutely brutal matchup for them. But the Vikings, Steelers, Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets are their next 5 games after that. Those are like winnable games for the Browns if they keep playing like this on a defensive level. And maybe we'll see a quarterback change and that'll disrupt things, but who knows, man? I just think that they're going to lean on number 10 for most of the season.
Part of it too, man. Like, we thought coming into the year, okay, Browns are going to be first pick contention. The Browns are probably going to win 2, 3, maybe 4 games if we're lucky. The way the Browns defense is playing, the way that they're keeping this offense in games, I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns won like 6 or 7 games.
Yeah. And even if they're not winning a lot of games, just the fact that they're going to not be in completely negative game scripts is good for Judkins. And Judkins, like 37% of the routes is something for the first game that you're the starter. It's not like he's completely phased out if they do fall behind. I'm sure we would see more Samson if they were really behind in a game script. But dude, the guy had 95% of the team's carries, and it looks like somehow they should have given him the ball more on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, he's their clear best offensive player right now, and I don't think it's particularly close. We actually had the quote when he was slated to return going into week 2. I'm not sure if you saw that quote from Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco said, like, yeah, like we're lucky to have him back. He's going to be a big part of our offense. That was the first thing you heard from Flacco's mouth.
Well, yeah, and think about a guy that maybe would have had a nice excuse to start slow, too, and not look that great. It's because he missed the entire training camp period at 21 years old. He wasn't on the field all offseason outside of OTAs and rookie minicamp. So he's probably only going to get better as the weeks go along.
Yeah, and we're not here to discuss like the details of, what happened, but you could tell like that mental burden of not being able to play football. Like, he looks motivated. He looks like a talented player, had that light switch, like, oh shit, like this shit isn't permanent. I have to go and make every game count.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So moving into your number 3, here's one that we can kind of eat some humble pie on here.
Yeah.
Ricky Pearsall, I would say I was lukewarm on him coming into the season. I wasn't excited about him. I wasn't down on him. I started down on him and got a little bit more excited. But he's got to be on the rise, man, because he looks great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the production has been there as well, but to be honest, like this is just simply an eyeball take. Like when you watch the 49ers play, when you watch how that offense operates, like Ricky Pearsall just looks fantastic. Like that's the best way I can put it. Shanahan, he's using him to perfection. And Brock Purdy is slated to return soon, whether it's this week, whether it's the week after. Brock Purdy's injury looks like one that's going to be, not an issue come 2 weeks from now. And I can't get too overboard. Like I want, based off how Ricky Pearsall's playing, to rank him as a top 15, top 18 wide receiver. I still have to add the context. Juwan Jennings isn't playing this game. George Kittle's going to come back soon. But the fact of the matter is, even when both those guys were on the field, yes, Kittle only 28% of the snaps in week 1, so take that a little bit with a grain of salt. But in that game, Pearsall had 51% of the team air yards. It's clear on those play action shots, obviously getting that ground game going with McCaffrey, Pearsall is the guy that they want to hit down the field, and he can separate. He's shown yak ability, and he's shown the natural ability just to track the football over his shoulder. How many times have you seen for the 49ers in these first few weeks where there's a deep ball down the field, Ricky Pearsall, tough catch, he has to make the adjustment, and he just makes it, man. And that just innate ability, those instincts as a wide receiver, man, you can't teach. You put Xavier Legette in those situations, how many balls is he coming down with?
Yeah, probably 0. But yeah, I definitely got to admit that Ricky Pearsall looks great and he's got to be on the rise. Again, like you said, there's reason for some pessimism because Kittle's going to be coming back, I guess, starting in week 5 or starting in week 6. I can't remember the first game that he can be back. Juwan Jennings will probably be back at some point, either this week or the week after that. And then come week 6, I think is the target date for Brandon Ayuk to come back from his injury. So it's not going to probably last forever, Ricky Pearsall being like the clear alpha, but he's playing well enough that even once those guys are back on the field, he'll still earn targets. He'll still be fantasy relevant and still probably be a top 30-ish, 35-ish wide receiver in fantasy.
Correct. The take really for me is I thought coming into the year that at very minimum when Ayuk's healthy, he's a better wide receiver. And then Pearsall might be washed a little bit behind with, Kittle, obviously one of the best tight ends in the league. Juwan Jennings, maybe a coin flip for who breaks out between the two. But based off how Ricky Pearsall has played, there is still the chance that even when everybody's healthy, he ends up being the one because that's just how good he looks. He's up to my wide receiver 26. He was my wide receiver 32 coming into this week. And I think the breakout is very much real.
Yeah, I have him a little lower than you. I'm at 29, but yeah, I still feel really good about him, especially over the next 3 to 4 weeks. He could really just continue stacking these games where he looks great. And then even when Ayuk and Kittle are back on the field, like I said, he could still be maybe even our preferred option at the wide receiver position going forward. My number 3 option here is Daniel Jones. People have been screaming at me to raise Daniel Jones and put him in this video for the last couple of weeks. But the truth is I already had him so high that he wasn't really a riser. The market was just catching up to where I have him. But now Daniel Jones is the savior we all knew we needed because this is this year's Sam Darnold. It's this year's Baker Mayfield. It's this year's Geno Smith. He is absolutely real. He is here to stay. This dude isn't just scoring fantasy points at a super high level, by the way. Daniel Jones, 22 fantasy points per game right now. He's averaging 9.3 yards per attempt and a 71.6% completion percentage. The crazy part about the Colts and Daniel Jones right now is that they keep blowing teams out. So Daniel Jones hasn't had to throw more than 34 pass attempts in a game. This guy's averaging 22 fantasy points per game, and he's only thrown 3 passing touchdowns and is averaging 29 pass attempts per game. So it feels so good to say that he is 100% my highest rostered quarterback on Underdog, and he was like my biggest quarterback dynasty buy because everything that he does right now just looks great. And maybe people saw this coming. Maybe people didn't see it coming. I didn't think he would look this good. I thought he'd be good for fantasy because he can run the ball and that kind of thing. But he actually looks like really good to the point that the Colts are going to need to get their checkbook ready at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he's up to quarterback 12 for me in fantasy rest of the season. Like, I would take him above guys like Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy. Like, I think at this point, the way Daniel Jones is playing, there's no reason for him to be benched for Anthony Richardson. And he's actually scoring a lot of fantasy points. And guess what? Like I mentioned with Jonathan Taylor, the Colts offense is going to keep looking this good. Daniel Jones has every real possibility to legitimately be a top 10 fantasy quarterback rest away.
Yeah, well, what was Sam Darnold in fantasy quarterback scoring last year? Like, did anybody think going into the season that Sam Darnold was going to outscore like better real life quarterbacks, like outscoring the likes of like Jordan Love and Brock Purdy and those type of guys that he outscored? Well, he did. And like, I have Daniel Jones over Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford rest of the season. Like, legitimately, he runs the ball and he's playing super, super well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the easiest way to put it. Daniel Jones, he's a guy that was an afterthought, I would say, coming into fantasy, a guy that you probably didn't draft in one quarterback leagues. A guy that was probably in best ball, we were getting consistently round 17, round 18, like realistically.
Yeah. 21% of Daniel Jones feels pretty damn good right now.
I'm above market too, so appreciate you for the Daniel Jones gospel apparently, because that's exactly what it's been. We will go to my fourth player here, and this is, I would say, an obvious riser. Obviously, unfortunate, like Omarion Hampton, given what happened to the other running back in the backfield. Najee Harris, I mentioned the Achilles injury. James Conner goes down with what looks like a season-ending ankle injury, gets carted off the field. The reports from the doctors are not looking good on Twitter. Trey Benson, he's going to be a league winner, man. It's really this simple. Talented handcuff, got the size, 220 plus pounds, speed. I mean, 4.39 level speed at the combine. And he has a receiving skill set. In his final year at Florida State, 20 receptions, 227 receiving yards. If you do recall, when we were talking about him in the prospect cycle, he's a guy that was a top 2 running back for both of us, a guy that we both compared to Pearsall, and a guy that was literally the most elusive charted running back in PFF history. The fact that he now has the opportunity to be a bell cow running back, Dwayne actually lists the usage here. 87% of the snaps in week 3, 71% of the rushing attempts, 50% of the team routes, and he has a 13% target share on the season. Dwayne says, upgrades to mid RB2 territory. I have him at RB21 right now, and to be honest, we see 1 week of that. He might even end up being a high-end running back here for me.
Yeah, I think putting him around that mid RB2 range is more just like cautious optimism that he'll get the workload, because Amari DiMercado or something could be involved and take away the third down snaps or whatever. But it's crazy because, like you just made reference to, Trey Benson has actually been the third down back in the offense. So he'll probably still retain a lot of those snaps. And like you mentioned, 1 target, 5 targets, 3 targets through 3 weeks. He's going to have a role out of the backfield as a receiver, and Kyler Murray has relied on him even in like 2-minute drill situations before Connor's injury. So the great thing about this is that Benson did not have a great fantasy day. He has 8 fantasy points pretty much in every single game that he's played so far this year. So before your league mates know what they have, I'm sure they know he's going to be startable going forward, but before they know what they have truly, I think now is the time to go buy on Trey Benson for sure.
Where do you have him ranked rest of the season?
He is my RB 19.
Okay, so similar range to me, and I completely agree, man. At the end of the day here, if Benson can be as efficient as he has been, I think that's the other thing too. It's not like you're just getting like, a Braylon Allen, a 2.8 or 3.2, whatever yards per carry is plotter, now gets the opportunity to start because Pearsall misses time. No, like Benson's been at 5.7 yards per carry this year. Benson's looked good out of the backfield too, like we said. So if he can get that type of 3-down workload and even be a 4.7 plus yards per carry back for what I would describe as an average, if not slightly above average Cardinals team, sky's the limit.
I know this isn't a dynasty video, but just out of curiosity, is he a top 15 dynasty running back now?
Give it 1 week, he might be top 10.
Would you rather have him or Josh Jacobs in dynasty right now?
Benson.
Yeah. Like, we got a 24-year-old running back who has 4.3 speed and a receiving skill set now. Like, unfortunately for Connor, he just suffered Chris Godwin's injury, probably, is what the ankle injury that he just suffered. And he's 30 years old and has like 2,000 career touches. Like, this is probably the end for James Conner, if not the end of his time in Arizona, I would imagine, for James Conner.
And I hate to be the guy that says this. I'm not saying it as like a victory lap per se. I'm just saying it that I outlined this in the sleepers video. I said, I'm like, last year was the only year we've seen a fully healthy year from James Conner. There's a very real possibility that we see his body break down this year.
Yeah. And I think before the season, I had a video where I talked about like tier ranking the handcuffs and stuff. And it's like, obviously we don't love this scenario. If you're James Conner, obviously James Conner's a great person, a great player, but it sucks for him, but it is why you draft a guy like Trey Benson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is why round 11, round 12, round 13, every year we say, hey, like the running backs in that range just look so much better than the wide receivers because of the implied upside. This was always the ceiling scenario to the thesis of drafting Trey Benson.
Yeah, and he was already carving out a pretty decent role before this. So definitely good news for people who had Trey Benson stashed. He's only rostered in like 58% of leagues right now. So I'm sure if he's available in your league, he's going to go. He's
doing waivers tomorrow.
Every last dollar you have is the type of player he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing waivers tomorrow. He's probably going to be the number 1 name on that list.
Yeah, like I said, he's available, or he's rostered, in 58% of leagues, not available in 58% of leagues. So he is over the threshold, but if he's available, he's completely unload the clip type of dude. Emeka Egbuka is the number 4 riser. I mean, what did you guys expect? Wide receiver 22 to wide receiver 17. It's his first high volume game. That's the positive for Emeka Egbuka. Is that the issue for him before was that he was just kind of scoring touchdowns. And to me, it's so insane that despite him scoring touchdowns, everybody was kind of going, oh, well, he's not really getting the targets, touchdown regression, all that kind of stuff. It was his first 2 career games, guys. Yes, Chris Godwin's coming back probably this week in week 4 against the Eagles, but now Mike Evans is probably out for a couple of games here. And it really doesn't matter to me. Baker's playing great. The O-line is about to get the best left tackle in football back from injury. And again, need I remind you that this is about to be his 4th career game, and we're already talking about a 17-point per game receiver who's making acrobatic catches multiple times in one game and scoring touchdowns anytime he gets an opportunity. It really does feel like he's scratching the surface. People are going to think, okay, I got to sell this guy. There's going to be a selling window coming up for Emeka Egbuka. Just hold the dude. Stop worrying about selling windows. Stop worrying about selling him high because he's a rookie wide receiver. Rookie wide receivers are not supposed to be this good through their first 3 career games. Ladd McConkey last year, 9 fantasy points per game. Brian Thomas Jr., 12 fantasy points per game. Jackson Smith-Njigba as a second-year receiver last year, 11.5 fantasy points per game. Rome Odunze pretty much unstartable his first 3 weeks and most of his rookie season. Hell, Justin Jefferson in his rookie season only got on the field playing ahead of Olabisi Johnson in week 3 of his rookie year. Emeka Egbuka is a wide receiver 1 in fantasy points per game right now. Yes, it's come on the back of touchdowns. Yes, it's come on the back of some injuries and some luck in his regard. But even with Godwin coming back, I feel so good about this dude just continuing to get better all season. And the Bucs are 3-0 without 4/5 of their offensive line.
Yeah, it was Ron yesterday, mid-slate. I was watching the game. Emeka Egbuka's one-hander on the sideline comes on the Underdog Twitter account, and he just says, "Take your yards per route run and shove it, nerds." And that's exactly what I wanted to say to so many people. It's like, oh, he's so reliant on touchdowns. Oh, he only makes good plays when it results in scoring. It's like, who the fuck cares? He's scoring fantasy points, and he's good at football. I don't care about his yards per route run in his first 3 games. He's scoring fantasy points. You don't think that's going to increase?
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't play in points per yards per route run leagues. Like when you're this good as a rookie, you get rewarded with more targets, more design touches. Josh Grizzard is going to make him the first read on more plays. And again, part of the reason he's also on the rise is because Mike Evans is probably going to miss a game or 2 at least, if not maybe even put on short-term IR.
Yeah, I also have Emeka at wide receiver 17. Very unfortunate. I mean, Mike Evans and hamstring injuries, like that's a marriage at this point.
8th of his career.
I mean, again, really sucks for Evans. Emeka Egbuka, though, the sky is the limit. Talking about another rookie wide receiver that I would say showed by far the most encouraging sign of his first 3 weeks. And I mean, it's not really much of I would say an accomplishment when you consider how his first 2 weeks went. In his first 2 weeks, he was sub 70% of the snaps. But this week, 84% of the snaps, 16% of the targets, and 77% of the air yards for Matthew Golden. He is up from wide receiver 43 to wide receiver 36 in my rest of season rankings. We know with Jayden Reed, he is out for an indefinite period of time at this point. Jayden Reed gets surgery on his foot, on his shoulder. I wouldn't be shocked if he missed the entire season at this point, in all honesty. Tucker Kraft, he played this past week, but we do know coming into the week he was banged up with what's potentially a bone bruise. All this, it goes to say that with Matthew Golden, he has the opportunity as a first-round pick who can separate on all 3 levels to be the number 1 target for Jordan Love. And to me, it's pretty simple to just project him as a low-end wide receiver 3 until he starts playing better with legitimate top 24 upside. That's what he was drafted to be. Like I said, can separate, can make plays at all 3 levels, and there's a very real opportunity given the snap share increase he just saw.
Yeah, he was a lot like Ladd coming out, where you had to watch the tape and really appreciate the part of the game because his profile wasn't great and he didn't have, like, it's not like he was Emeka Egbuka as a prospect in terms of how much production he had with NFL receivers and stuff. So, I mean, he's a gamble for sure. Like, don't pay like an arm and a leg for this guy in a trade, but you should be sending out offers for him now before the bottom, or like before the floodgates open and he starts, he's going to have a 60-yard touchdown soon. It's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to happen at some point. And Matthew Golden is the perfect guy to tack on to the back of a trade right now because he has so much inherent upside, especially if he's a bench player for you right now, that you feel so good about investing into him. It's just, when is he going to be startable? When are you going to feel really good about starting him? I would say for now, you probably just want to have him as a bench stash, but you could probably trade a guy who's coming off of a big week, no problem for him. Like if you have, I'm trying to think somebody like a Keon Coleman type, I would rather have Matthew Golden rest of the season. Cooper Kupp had a decent week. I would rather have Matthew Golden. Like there's going to be guys easily that you can trade like that to go and get Matthew Golden.
I would rather have Matthew Golden straight up over Jalen Waddle, and I wouldn't think twice about it.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but like Michael Pittman just had another good game. Like I would trade Michael Pittman for Matthew Golden if you were looking to do something like that. Khalil Shakir scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football or on Thursday Night Football. You could probably trade somebody like that for Matthew Golden, especially again, if you're in a shallow league, you're just looking for pure upside. Golden, if he hits, will probably be like a 15 to 17 point per game guy, given the profile and the route running chops that he has. The Packers are pretty desperate for pass catching talent right now.
Back-weighted production as well, by the way.
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, Golden, perfect guy to go after. Him and Benson are both like, make sure you go get these guys before people know what hit them, kind of thing. Like if your league's taco lucked into Matthew Golden in the 8th round because he drafted off of ADP or something like that, go send out an offer for Golden before he really realizes what he has. Because you look at the box score and you're like, okay, well, he has 3 fantasy points, 1.5 fantasy point, and 10 fantasy points. Like someone who's not in a sharp league, who's looking at usage and stuff, will not know what they have in Matthew Golden at all. And he might even be on wires in some people's shallower leagues. So definitely go make sure that you grab Matthew Golden, definitely on the rise there. Tyreek Hill is the last guy that I have on the rise. I might have to explain myself a little bit because he is my wide receiver 15 now from my wide receiver 21 before. Do I love the Miami Dolphins offense? Nobody does. But Tua's playing so bad right now. And even still, Tyreek has posted back-to-back top 20 scoring weeks. And the reason why is because of just pure volume. The Dolphins offense is playing from behind in every single game because their defense is so bad. The team isn't giving up on their coach yet. I like the way that they, looked and fought around the Bills game there. Tyreek still looks like he can play at a high level. That's the thing that I was most worried about Tyreek Hill coming into the season was, is he going to look like Tyreek Hill? And does he look like 2022 Tyreek Hill? No, but he looks like 70 to 80% of that. I can see Tyreek PPR scamming his way to a nice weekly floor all season. Plus there's some upside that if maybe Tua isn't the worst quarterback in the league, that we could be talking about a guy that does get back to back end top 12 type of numbers, mid wide receiver 1 type of numbers, because Tua in 2 of his 3 games averaged 5 yards per attempt or worse. And he's turning the ball over. He's not making the throws that he needs to make. The Dolphins wide receivers also have some winnable games and some winnable matchups the next couple of weeks with the Jets and the Panthers. And Sauce Gardner got banged up against the Bucs too. So that could be a really easy matchup for Tyreek to have like a blow up performance. We just kind of need to see Tua play better. Like if you think Tua is a complete bum and you don't want anything to do with it, I get that. And you don't need to like trade for Tyreek Hill or anything. But if you have Tyreek on your roster, I would feel better about him now, a lot better about him now than I did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I moved him up. Now it's funny because where I moved him up to is where you already had him. So kind of goes to show that you've always just been higher on Tyreek than me. But I do have to credit the fact that, I mean, he is getting the volume right now. I moved him up to wide receiver 21. He was a guy that after the first week, I wanted to have close to wide receiver 30. So that is rising in my rankings. The Dolphins offense may be slightly better watch than we expected this week. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa is still struggling for what it's worth. 34 attempts for 143 passing yards.
No, he's got to play a lot better for sure.
But I mean, the fact that Tyreek Hill's still making plays and he's getting volume. Again, I'm not too excited about it because I have no good thoughts about this offense, and I also just don't think it's been efficient volume. But volume is volume, and I'm at the end of the day, considering the wide receiver landscape, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think you're egregious for having him at wide receiver 14 because outside of maybe 10 wide receivers, who's actually played well?
Yeah, like I have him. So I'm at 15, but if you wanted to argue, you'd rather have Ladd McConkey, who's my wide receiver 16. You'd rather have Emeka Egbuka as my wide receiver 17. Garrett Wilson, my wide receiver 18. Rashee Rice, once he comes back from injury, is currently my wide receiver 19. Brian Thomas Jr., I actually have below Tyreek Hill right now because he's not playing well and the offense doesn't look like it's featuring him at the moment. You wanted to say you'd rather have all those guys than Tyreek and he'd be like wide receiver 20, wide receiver 21 for you. Yeah. That's totally reasonable. I just think that like I've also been slightly higher on Tua, the player. I think that Tua will start to play a little bit more league average quarterback level as opposed to like bottom 5 to 8 quarterback like he's playing right now. So part of me just thinks that with the Jets and Panthers next up on the schedule, the Dolphins offense and the Dolphins quarterback will start to play a little better than he's playing right now.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Again, I kind of mentioned that I'm lower on Jalen Waddle right now. I think Tyreek Hill's kind of shown that he's the volume wide receiver 1 on this team. I'm just curious how that keeps going. I think at this moment, though, it's very clear that this offense is concentrated between Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, and then the little bit that's left for Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, No, absolutely. So that's the end of the video. If you guys made it this far, leave us a like, subscribe to the channel. If you guys are new around here, those were 10 players skyrocketing up our rest of season rankings heading into week 4 of fantasy football. Of course, if you want our rest of season rankings, you can head on over to flockfantasy.com, use the promo code FSE to start your 7-day free trial. Season pass covers you from now until the rest of the season. You can get an annual Mother Flocker subscription right now and get a free team review, because if you guys need some help, you're 1-2, you're 0-3, and you really feel like you need some help with moves to make going forward, we can definitely help you with that. We live stream team reviews throughout the week. So check that out if you guys are interested. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed. I mentioned this in last week's videos, but only 40% of you guys are subscribed to this channel that watch these videos. We got to change that number. It is totally free for you guys, and we are here to help you win your fantasy championships this year. And honestly, like I can go out on a limb by saying this, but based on who's been our risers the first couple weeks of the season, these are guys that we've actually been a decent hit rate. I'm not going to say we've hit on all of these guys. There's definitely guys that we've said, I wasn't high on this guy coming into the season, I'm higher on him now. But I feel like 60-ish% of these guys were guys that we were already above market on. So I feel like we're doing our job to try and help you guys win over your league mates, and really appreciate the support on the channel. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.